Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with fried chicken sandwich. That's right, because of all the recent hoopla, I attempted to make a copycat Popeye's fried chicken sandwich. And you'll be happy to know I was actually very successful at making a copycat Chick-fil-A fried chicken sandwich. At least appearance and texture-wise, the taste really was very close to Popeye's. So I guess what we have here is the best of both worlds. And to get started with this incredibly delicious hybrid, what we'll do first is make our marinade, which is going to consist of some buttermilk, some salt, some hot sauce, and then by far the most important ingredient in this entire operation, some dry ranch dressing mix. And the one I'm using here is from a certain valley that's fairly well hidden. But anyway, we'll go ahead and mix this up. And the reason for the dressing mix is not just because of the herbs and spices. It's because it contains copious amounts of MSG, which in case you're wondering is really the reason that people line up for fast food. Right, besides the convenience and low prices. Okay, it's a proven scientific fact that MSG makes everything taste better. Like a lot better. And some might even say addictively better. And then what we'll do once our marinade's mixed is go ahead and find a couple chicken breasts to toss in there. And what I'm using here is some boneless, skinless breasts, which do not contain the tenderloin, or fillet or finger as it's called. Okay, so if you see that piece of finger-shaped meat, you should probably pull it out and use it in a salad. And then one thing I like to do before we dunk these is take a sharp knife and make a few relatively shallow slashes in the thick end. Right, like 3 or 4 one way and 3 or 4 the other. And you may have actually seen us do this trick when we prep chicken for the grill. And what that's going to do is help our marinade get into the chicken a little better. Plus, it will also help that thick end cook a little more evenly in relationship to the thinner end. And then what we'll do once those are prepped is go ahead and toss them in our marinade until they're very well coated and submerged. And once that's been accomplished, what we'll do is transfer this into the fridge to marinate for anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. All right, that is my recommendation. Some people say you can go overnight, but for me that might be a little too long. And then what we'll do while that's chilling in the fridge is go ahead and make up our breading mix, which is going to be mostly all-purpose flour, to which we will add a little bit of cornstarch, as well as some salt, along with its good friend freshly ground black pepper, and of course some cayenne. And not a little, a lot. If you want your fried chicken breast spicy, which I do. And then we can finish up with the rest of our dry ranch dressing mix powder, because MSG. And please note I added that with 1 spoon, and then grabbed a different spoon to give this a mix, for no apparent reason. And then once that is combined, we can move on to the final component, the wash, which for me is going to be nothing more than 1 egg, plus some buttermilk, and a little splash of regular milk. And once that's all in there, we'll give it a mix. And by the way, in future experiments with this recipe, I'm going to figure out a way to turn our marinade into our wash. But for now, we're just going to do it separate. And that's it. Once all our components are ready, and our breasts have marinated for a sufficient amount of time, we can begin the breading process. And that will involve using a fork to pull our chicken out of our marinade. And we will let almost all the excess drip off. At which point we will coat that very thoroughly on both sides with our seasoned flour breading mix. And for filming/demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do one here. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that other one back in the fridge, so I can make that for Michelle later. And then what we'll do after that first flouring is go ahead and shake off the excess before giving it a dip in our wash. And then once that surface has been saturated, we will go back into the flour, again coating it very thoroughly on both sides. And we are actually going to do this twice, which is hopefully going to give us a nice thick, sort of gnarly and irregular surface, which will hopefully fry up nice and crispy and crunchy. And I'm not sure, but for some reason I switched to my hands here, which did not work as well as the fork. Right, your fingertips are going to sort of rub off that coating. So when you do this, just use the fork all the way through. Oh, and I should mention, some people claim that Popeyes uses cornflakes in this breading, which they say creates that extra crunchy surface. But I've eaten a lot of that stuff, as in like a dangerous amount, and I've never really seen or tasted what I thought were cornflakes. So I'm not really sure about that. And of course, if you have any inside info, let me know. But anyway, getting back to this, I managed to give it the old double dip. After which I transferred it onto this rack, so we can let it dry for at least 15 minutes before we fry it. Okay, you really do want to give your coatings time to adhere before you fry things. And at this point I was thinking, this is looking pretty good. Right, that surface sort of looked like what I was going for. Although some people say you can dip and dredge that like 3 or 4 times to get even more of a gnarly coating. and maybe more similar to what you see at Popeyes. But anyway, I stopped at 2. And like I said, we're going to let this sit for at least 15 minutes before it hits the hot oil, which of course you've heated up while you're waiting to a temperature of 350 to 375. And once up to temp, we will carefully place that in. And we're going to go ahead and fry this for about 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the size of your breast, or until it's beautifully golden brown and crispy and safely cooked through. And you don't have to, but about halfway through I gave mine a flip, because I really do love to play with my food. And yes, in case you're wondering, you can totally pan fry this in like an inch of oil in a cast iron skillet. That will work just fine if you don't have a deep fryer. So that's up to you. I mean, you guys are after all the olive oils of your fried chicken sandwich toils. And I don't mean olive oil the oil. I mean olive oil Popeye's girlfriend, which is spelled O-Y-L. And if you know that, you're old. But anyway, like I said, we'll go ahead and cook this for about 4 or 5 minutes, at which point we'll pull that out and transfer it onto some crinkled up foil. And that's so the bottom doesn't get soggy, which can happen if you drain this on a paper towel, since that bottom will steam. But here with the foil, we have room for that to escape. And speaking of crispy, this sure looked right, but of course we have to check. And as you well know, fork don't lie. In fact, I saw someone wearing a t-shirt that said that the other day. But anyway, that sounded just about right. On both sides. And I couldn't wait to see if it tasted right. So I spread some mayo on a lightly buttered and toasted hamburger bun. And for the full fast food experience, do not buy some beautiful artisan bun from a bakery. Right, go to the grocery store and look for the package that has the most ingredients, because that's the one you want. And other than the mayo, the only other thing this is going to get is some sliced dill pickles. And then we will place our absolutely gorgeous chicken breast on the top. And then lean our bun like this, and take a bunch of pictures, at which point we'll place our bun directly on top, and take a bunch more pictures. And then, finally, about 10 minutes later, I went in for a bite, which, as you're about to hear, was still very crispy. And just as importantly, incredibly delicious. Right, that meat was super juicy and flavorful, and really was reminiscent of Popeye's fried chicken. But while that coating really was beautifully crunchy, it really did not have the same level of crispiness that Popeye's fried chicken does, and was way, way more similar to a Chick-fil-A sandwich. Which I realize is good news for some of you, but bad news for others. So like I said in the intro, I somehow ended up with a hybrid of both versions. But there was one problem that really doesn't even sound like a problem. 2 large breasts. Okay, the breasts I used were like 8 ounces, and what you really want for this sandwich is like something between 4 and 6. Right, the chicken to crispy breading ratio is off here. And when you have this amount of steaming, moist meat, and that thin amount of coating, it's actually going to start to separate and come off, as you can probably notice from these eating shots. Which is not like an actual serious problem, like fast food addiction. Oh, and one other thing that wasn't really a problem was this coating not staying crunchy after sitting for a while. Right, this was like over 15 minutes later. And as you can hear, it still had the sound to astound. But anyway, that's it. My attempt at a crispy fried chicken sandwich. While this didn't come out exactly like the ones at those aforementioned chains, it was still very, very good. And by being able to make this at home, you don't have to worry about some fast food store running out. And if you want, you could eat these on Sunday. So amen to that. And I'll finish by saying I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.